Alright, so instead of going to the left, let's go to the right. After taking the path to the right, we soon came to a dead end with a staircase leading down. We glanced back only to find the fire demon charging our way. Hurry, go down! Grace didn't need to tell me. I flew down the stairs like a bat out of hell. 3rd floor. When we reached the bottom of the stairs, we found ourselves in a large square room. The fire demon peered furiously down at us from above. Why isn't he chasing us down the stairs? That's how it works. How it works? Yeah, so you can't be chased too far. We looked around the room as we caught our breath. 3 doors were situated on each of the 4 walls of the square room. That's 12 doors. How do we decide which one to take? We'll just have to check them one by one. I looked at each wall, trying to decide which door to start with. That's when I heard a voice that seemed to come from everywhere. Listen to me, fools. Grace glanced around as if searching for someone. Fools, someone is talking to you. You idiot, I'm talking to both of you. Oh, sorry about that. By the way, I don't think we've ever met. Who are you? Well, you'll know soon enough. If you can survive long enough to reach me, that is. Suddenly, his voice changed to sound like a smarmy game show host. Okay, then, you two. It's time for the 12-door challenge! There's only one correct door, and the other 11 lead to instant death. Now, let's see you open the right door! The right door? Jeez. Wondering what kind of gruesome death awaited us. I took one final look around the room. Then I noticed that each of the doors had either numbers or symbols engraved in them. Starting with the wall in front, they were 42 pound 693 1*7 508. What's with these numbers? I said bitterly, looking vaguely upwards. What do they mean? I forgot to give you a hint. Ready? Open the door below 4. The one below 4, got it? The one below 4? I shouted. What does that mean? But there was no response. I'm not going to die here. My brows furrowed in deep concentration. I once again investigated each of the doors. This is where... Basically, we're going to check each of the doors. And it's going to take us a bit, so I'm going to make a save really quick. And now let's go back. So, let's start with the north wall. I think we're going to be clearing the north wall first. So, which one? Let's open the 4 door. Standing before me was a skeleton wearing a black cape. I saw a quick flash, and the next thing I knew, I was looking up from the ground. I saw the god of death facing a headless body with blood spurting out of its neck. Hey, wait, that's me! The moment I realized that, the body slumped to the ground, blood still pumping from its severed neck. The blood flowed on the ground towards me in a crimson stream. I'm just ahead, but I'm still alive. But that's... You dead. I guess I can just back up. That's actually pretty easy. So yeah, we'll do that. Without hesitation, I opened the 2 door. Quack. The giant duck picked me up in its beak and swallowed me whole. I was in complete darkness, immersed in powerful stomach acid. Horrible pain assaulted my every nerve as my flesh began to dissolve. The smell of blood and acid filled my senses as consciousness faded away. The 2 door. Let's back up. Whoop, backed up too far. And the pound door. Suddenly, countless sharp spears sprang out and pierced my stomach and chest. I didn't even have time to register pain as my consciousness ebbed away. As my strength ebbed away and my consciousness began to fade. Alright, so let's try the east wall since the north wall had nothing good for us. So, let's start with, I believe the actual correct door is the 6th door. We're going to save that one for last. It's the longest route, so we'll save it. Without hesitation, I open the 9 door. An enormous steel ball rolled towards me. I had no time to dodge, and it rolled on top of me, crushing me as flat as a pancake. Without hesitation, I opened the 3 door. Behind it was Takeshi Kitano. What the heck is Takeshi? Okay, apparently Takeshi Kitano is a Japanese director, comedian, singer, actor, show host, film editor, and a lot of other things. With the exception of his work as a film director, he's known almost exclusively by the name Beat Takeshi. So it says, "Hey Takeshi, can I call you Beat? I loved you in the Zatoshi." Before I could finish the sentence, I glimpsed the flash of a Japanese sword. It was the same one he used in the movie. "I wanted your autograph, your lord." That probably made a lot more sense in Japan, but that's still pretty funny. And I like that they kept that in there, because that's kind of cool for people that were into the main game before. Alright, let's move down to the west wall. I'm having to scroll down a bit. So, let's start with the one door. A giant snarling Doberman leaped at me, saliva flying from its mouth. Thank you. I had no chance to flee. It gripped my windpipe with its powerful jaws, and with one ferocious shake of its head, tore my throat like crepe paper. Coughing fresh blood out of the hole in my throat, my consciousness began to fade. Never mind, apparently the sixth door was not in fact the right one, it's a different one later on. I did that wrong, so let's do the sixth door. A woman in white sat there. She looked up at me and smiled. She was incredibly beautiful, like a goddess from a fairy tale. Suddenly, she morphed into a hideous monster, and her head began to stretch out like a snake. I screamed and tried to run, but the neck wrapped itself around my throat. Help! I couldn't breathe. Soon I lost the strength to struggle, and the light began to fade. Alright, let's try the star door. Without hesitation, I opened the star door. Inside, the room was filled to bursting with rice. I had no time to run. I was swiftly buried underneath tons of uncooked rice. The weight on my chest was crushing, and then I heard my breastbone snap. My consciousness began to fade. What a sad way to go. Okay, I found out apparently 7 is actually the right one. So we'll wipe out the south wall ones and we'll come back to 7. Without hesitation, I opened the 5 door. Behind the door stretched an impenetrable darkness. Suddenly, the darkness began to creep towards me. Ugh. Ugh, it's creepy. I crept along the floor and spread out my legs. Soon it began to envelop my entire body. Cockroaches! I was covered from head to toe by tens upon thousands of cockroaches. Their dry scuttling sounds filled my ears. I flailed wildly, trying to shake them all off my arms and legs when I began to feel sharp stabs of pain all over. Blood began to drip from my arms. The roaches covered my face, crawling into my clothing, my nose, my ears, my mouth, and every other orifice. They began to tear at my flesh. I could no longer see. The world had gone black, and I could feel blood soaking my clothes. I collapsed, surrendering to the horror, and my consciousness began to fade. Ew. Ew. No, that's not a fun one. Alright, let's try the 0 door. I opened the 0 door. There was nothing beyond it but a vast, limitless dead space, devoid of even a molecule of air. With a roaring sound, the air from the room exploded inwards, pulling Grace and me with it. For a brief moment, I felt myself spinning in the vast emptiness, and then my consciousness began to fade. Let's try the 8 door. Something wriggled wetly towards me and wrapped around my torso. A giant octopus! 1 tentacle, 2, 3. Their powerful suction cups bit into my flesh. Ugh. I felt my ribs grinding against each other, as intense pain shot through my body. Ugh. A glob of thick, frothy blood was ejected from my mouth as my vision dimmed and darkness overtook me. Oh, I found this interesting. I just thought about this, but, the Japanese, kind of like how, some people are superstitious about the number 13. Not everyone, but some Japanese people are superstitious about the number 4, because it sounds a lot like the number, or the word for death, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So, let's do that. And it actually has the Grim Reaper standing behind it. The god of death, as it were. Alright, so let's try number 7. The The voice of the game show host echoed in my ears. Lucky 7! Correct answer! And now, for your special prize, a one-way trip to the abyss! Suddenly, the floor tilted violently, and Grace and I lost our balance and slid down through the open door. We were propelled forward at incredible speed, slipping down the smooth surface, as if the whole thing was a giant slide. 27th floor. Whoa, straight from a 3rd floor to the 27th? I feel like a fare dodger. Yeah, but it's been a long ride, Grace said softly to herself, her eyes somewhere far away. A long ride, right. That's why I felt like a fare dodger. I said, but Grace didn't appear to be listening. On the 7th floor, we walked through a maze of death. On the 12th, we were captured by an evil wizard and turned into frogs. Huh? Oh, yeah? Yes. On the 19th floor, we were laid in a dragon's lair and nearly burnt to a crisp. And on the 21st, we had to solve the riddle of the Sphinx. I thought I was dimly starting to remember some of it. Oh, right. And the 25th floor was really hard. We were surrounded by those giant snakes. Grace looked at me as if I was crazy. What are you talking about? That didn't happen. The 25th floor was actually pretty easy. Oh. I felt kind of embarrassed, but decided not to say anything else. But anyway, this is the final floor. You can bet there are even more hideous monsters waiting for us. We better stay on guard. Yeah. Swallowing nervously, I looked around. We were in a vast open space, and it was dead silent. Doesn't look like there's anything here. Oh, and we couldn't hear a single sound. I reread the previous line. Doesn't look like there's anything here. Aha! You see? You're being lulled into a false sense of satisfaction. Something's going to attack us from an unexpected direction. An unexpected direction, huh? Like from under the floor? Laughing, I pounded on the stone floor with my foot. I heard a low echo reverberate and the floor began to shake. Whoa! An earthquake? The walls and ceiling began to shake violently along with the floor. No, it's something else. Grace was right. This didn't feel like one. It's alive! It's alive! The whole floor is a living monster! Just as I shouted that, I heard a familiar voice. So close and yet so far. That voice from before. Precisely. Oh, precisely. You have done well to survive the many perils that lay on your path. The death roulette on the 6th floor, the magic circle on the 9th, the escape from the non-existent 13th floor. I was watching you the whole time. I'm telling you we came here directly from the 3rd floor. Ho ho ho, no need to be modest. You are well deserving of my praise. It's not modesty. But anyway, what do you mean by so close yet so far? Grace interrupted. You suggested that this entire floor was a monster. That is not quite correct. In fact, from the very beginning, you have been inside me. Trying to ignore my terrible premonition, I reluctantly asked, what do you mean? I'm the industry's very first living maze, possessing true sentience. People whisper my name in fear and respect. They call me Maisy. Maisy? I shouted, trying my best not to laugh. That's not respect, they're making fun of you. Say, Maisy, how did you become sentient anyway? Grace seemed to have adjusted to the odd situation extremely quickly. That is a tough one. Would you be able to answer that question if I posed it to you? Yeah, but we're living creatures. You're like made of rock and wood and stuff, right? I do have a theory. I believe that as monsters traversed back and forth across my dungeon paths, they essentially created a type of neural network. You could call it the collective conscience of the monsters. The entire dungeon was remodeled and crystallized with a will of its own. That will is me. I had stopped listening once he started talking about neural networks. The bottom line was, it was a talking dungeon, so I didn't really care about the details. By the way, I hate to get right to the point, but is the lucky box on this floor? Of course. You've come all this way because you desire it, yes? Yes, can we have it? Grace smiled excitedly. Cast your eyes there. Following his command, we looked around. A platform rose in the center of the room. It appeared to be a giant table carved from a single slab of marble. Upon the table were 2 gleaming gold boxes. Huh? 2? There are 2 lucky boxes? Grace asked in surprise. Maisy quickly responded. Naturally, only one of them is the real one. You must choose. Grace and I glanced at each other and nodded. Slowly, we approached the 2 boxes. They were completely identical with no way to tell them apart. Which one should we pick? You decide, Max, Grace answered with a soft smile. I glared at the 2 boxes. Oh, I almost forgot to mention. The fake box is naturally an unlucky box, packed with all sorts of unlucky things from the world. If you open the wrong one, something terrible will happen. For example, your alarm clock might not go off, and you will be late for school, missing an important exam. Well, if that's about the scale of it, no big deal, eh? In some cases, you may perhaps even lose all of your game data. That's horrible! Grace and I shouted at the same time. Ho ho ho! All the reason to choose more carefully. Now, which one do you choose? Hint. Give us a hint. Selfish little creatures, aren't you? Very well. I'll give you a hint to honor the blood, sweat, and tears you have given me. Now, listen closely and think carefully. We nodded eagerly. What rules the hand that holds the bow? That is your hint. What rules the hand that holds the bow? That's too hard. Come on, give us a better hint. Grace stamped her foot angrily. Silence! Maisy boomed in a commanding voice. That is your only hint. Ugh. Now, what do you choose? The right or the left? Wait, which hand holds the bow? The left hand, right? And it's the right that holds the arrow. Or was it the other way around? Come on already, choose. Okay, so I accidentally chose the box on the right first because the stupid guide puts the bad route last, which is annoying. I want to end with a good route. So we're going to choose the box on the left first. And... You idiot! A high-pitched laugh filled the air. Now, I'll erase everything. Everything? No, not the data too! Frantically, I turned to look at Grace. Huh? Everything behind her had gone see-through. Grace? Max? Like a ghost, Grace was becoming transparent and fading away, right before my eyes. She turned to me and reached out her hand. I tried to grab it and saw that my own was fading away too. Max, Grace. Everything returned to nothing. Unlucky box. Now we can have the box on the right. And a beautiful melody floated out from the inside. This is the lucky box? Ho ho ho, you did well to solve my riddle. It is in fact the right side of the brain that governs the action of the left hand. Ho 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 ho. The right side of the brain does that? Oh, I get it. So that's what you meant. I'm impressed, Max. Oh, it's no big thing. I didn't tell her that I just guessed since I was too dumb to figure it out. The enchanting melody surrounded me. I closed my eyes and surrendered my body to the music. The lucky box was just a music box? Maisy, is that all that's in the lucky box? Grace asked, plainly annoyed. What else does anyone need besides the beauty of music? Well, how about something good to eat? Beautiful clothes, money, that kind of thing? Jesus H. Christ. You speak of mere material goods. Where's your sense of romance? Romance? Screw romance. Can you eat romance? The world runs on money. Money. Grace, you've changed. I apologize, Maisy said. The recession really has wrecked us. It used to be that you could take a picture of your high score and send it to all the magazines and they'd send you pins and stickers and stuff. That was back in the good old days. But now, thanks to all this austerity and so on, they wouldn't care. Your high score in what? That is for you to discover. It will be your final and most important job. Ho 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 ho! I sensed he was about to leave. Wait, don't go! Farewell, humans! Oh, ho, 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 ho. His voice became noticeably louder, and the air around us began to warp and twist. Before we knew what happened, we were standing in front of the door to the basement. For a while, we just stood there in shock. That wasn't a dream, was it? No, I don't think it was. We climbed the steps and saw that the lounge was lit by bright shafts of dawn sunlight. It was morning, and Grace and I could only stand there and squint into the sun. Our hearts filled with joy. And that is the end of the game. Maisy. So, what did you guys think? This is the end of Banshee's Last Cry, as it is on the iOS version, I might add. I don't know if there's any kind of different... I mean, I'm sure there's probably difference from the original version, but from the little bit I could dig up, both of the games seem to be fairly similar. They seem to have done a fairly good job of porting the game in quite a fulfilling way. A lot of music from the original OST is used in this in the exact same positional roles. And it's really hard to find information if you're not a Japanese speaker, because one, it's such an old game, and two, as far as I can tell, it's not really ported to English. This is the only place you can get it ported to English is on the iOS currently. I think they're trying to put it on the Android operating system at some point, which would be cool. But this is the only place you can get it currently. I think it's an interesting little game. I think it has some pacing problems. Like, for example, they start off with some of their best stuff in the game. Like, the murder chapter is the best chapter, in my opinion, bar none. And this video game chapter is, well, if you include it in the whole list of things, I think honestly it's the weakest. It's kind of... every ending is very flat and shallow. And they're not exactly exciting. They're just kind of like... It's like a series of unfortunate events, honestly. Just while making fun of RPG, roguelike video games as a whole. Not bad, necessarily, just not exciting, and nowhere near the level of interestingness that the rest of the game had. The rest of the game had really good music, really good sound, really good music, really good story, and everything, and this just kind of fell flat. Now, if you consider it as it is, because it's the last thing you're allowed to play in the game, you actually have to complete that Chunsoft conspiracy ending before you can get any of these endings. If you think of it kind of like a bonus section, I don't think it's bad. It's kind of cool. But as it is, it's a little poorly structured, because it starts out so good, and then as you go on, it just gets a little bit less exciting every time, and it's a little unfortunate because the beginning is so good. Maybe if you were just to play only the murder chapter and not play the rest, maybe it would leave you with a better impression of the game. Shorter, to be sure, but better. Though, I think the cool thing about the game is the fact that there's so much stuff in it. Like, it's like the game that keeps on giving. These are my final thoughts, by the way. That's why I'm rambling on a bit longer. So let me know what you guys think. I don't think, because this game obviously is so old, I wouldn't imagine that it would ever really get a sequel. But if they did, that would be really cool. Maybe not even same place, same, people, they could just wipe all of that and just make a whole new game, but with a similar writing style. That would be really cool. And I'm sure they probably have somewhat. Like, you can say, for example, I said 999 was very similar, and I still think it is to the murder chapter. And Chunsoft actually has a list of, has a pretty good repertoire of games. Let me go take a look at that. Yeah, Chunsoft has a very large list of games. Some of them being kind of stuff that we're familiar with over here. A few of them, like, I think they worked on Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. And they worked on, a few other games. They have a lot of games that are Japan only, which is really unfortunate. Because from what I've heard, I've looked a little bit into them in the past. Me and a friend have. And they seem to have some pretty interesting ideas that we just never got ported over here. Which is unfortunate. But You know, I mean, I would imagine the success of a game like this is probably small, being only on the iOS. If they bring it to Android, maybe it could get enough publicity. Maybe they would think about trying to port more of their games over. It is a fun way to go through it as on a phone because you can, it had a pretty good control scheme. You can save stuff, return to it. So it's really good for a mobile type of thing. Play for 5 minutes, leave. Or as I may have done, play for like 3 hours and then leave. But yeah, I mean, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. It was a fun experience. Never really recorded an iPhone before this, except for that one little bit that I did for 999 the novel. And I didn't really do a great job of recording it because I had bad software at the time. But I have decent software now. So if anyone knows any good iOS games that might be fun to do a Let's Play of, preferably in a widescreen format rather than this vertical format, let me know, and I might take a look into it. But for now, this is Banshee's Last Cry. I'm Mr. 250, probably going to start a new Let's Play soon. Thank you so much for watching, listening, reading, and I'll see you next time. Bye!